Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the part two of this week's Soft Skills Masterclass training section. My name is Abiola Awokiyesi. I'm a soft skill instructor at Mindklass. As an introduction to the topic that we have been looking at in this weekend, this is Robin Williams, who set a number of goals for himself. He set a goal to become a world popular comedian and actor singer, which he actually became. But in a later end of his life, he was diagnosed with a kind of dementia. And at age 63, the man who made the whole world laugh, but himself committed suicide. But the second person that we are looking at, whose name is Stephen Hawking, was diagnosed of a disease called ALS at age 21. So this man lived 55 years of his life on the wheelchair, and he was almost absolutely paralyzed. So he only speaks and communicates using a voice sanitizer. But despite the fact that this man was paralyzed from his head to his toe, he lived over 30 years. He lived that 56 years of his life to fulfill his purpose, to impact this world. And he grew to become a professor, a researcher, inventor, astrophysicist. And he lived and died at age 76. That was Steve Hawkins. This man is a blessing to the world today not because he suffered from this ill health, but majorly because he was able to understand the techniques of not using one's mind wrongly. So he was able to fully make productive use of his potential to bless the world. Steve Hawkins. And that's why we are looking at the topic today, introduction to mental health, particularly at depression, part 2. The word for today is, I am not the negative voice in my mind. I am not the negative voice in my mind. I would like us to take this to heart, that there are a positive voice in the mind of everyone. There is also the negative voice in the mind of everyone. Whichever one we give attention to will become. So it is important that you have this at the back of your mind, that you are not even your mind. Also, you are not the negative voice in your mind. By the end of today's class, we trust students will understand what is mental health. We understand what is depression. Also, we'll understand the assumed causes of depression. We understand the real cause of depression. We understand the ways that depression can be treated. Also, we have understood how to prevent and overcome depression. So we have looked at a number of these definitions in the last class. What is mental health? According to World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own ability, can cope with the normal stresses of life. Life is full of stress. And one of the beauty of life is the ability to cope, is the ability to overcome the stress, is the ability to, in spite of the stress, become productive. Number 3 is can work productively and fruitfully. Those who are suffering from ill health are unable to contribute productively and fruitfully in their life, let alone in their workplace. And lastly, having mental health means that one is able to make a contribution to one's community. The second definition of our topic for today, mental health, is a process in which one learns to use one's thoughts for the well-being of oneself and the society. So it is important to understand that, like the popular saying, where the mind goes, the mind goes. That is according to Joyce Meyer. She said, where the mind goes, the man goes. So mental health is a process. And that process involves learning the ability to use the mind positively for one's well-being, to promote one's health. And wrong use of that thoughts, wrong use of the mind, usually promotes ill health to oneself and the society. Now, the depression, the topic that we are looking at majorly, depression is a continuous feeling of sadness and loss of interest in activities. This usually occurs when the feeling of sadness and loss of interest in activity is over 2 weeks. Depression is a kind of mental illness. That is why you need to find every possible means to never become a victim of depression. So we want to look at the assumed causes of depression. One of the assumed causes of depression by many is that failed business or failed life, as many would have it, is the reason for depression. But if you look at the life of the man, Colonel Sanders, it proves to us that depression, that failed business or life, is not the actual cause of depression. It's not the actual cause of depression, because this man failed multiple times in life. He failed in marriage. He failed in being a father. He has invested in so many businesses which he also failed at. But yet he was able, in spite of the depression that he went through, he was able to make something worthwhile out of his life. The second man that we are looking at, Abraham Lincoln, who also failed multiple times. He failed when he was young. He had medical complications. He failed when he was competing for political positions multiple times. But yet, he said, my great concern is not whether you are failed, but whether you are content with your failure. So the education of this man, I don't mean schooling, I mean education, the self-education of this man made him understand, or gave him the understanding, that failure is not the end of life. Like the definition someone gave, that success is failure, an ability to improve on one's failure. So failed examination is another reason why many believe that, or one of the causes of depression. But the man before us said he failed JAMB 3 times. He failed WAEC twice, home for a year before he entered school. And then he was expelled in his final year. His mom had to borrow from family and friends to start again. And today, he boasts of 2 degrees and 4 certifications. So this man was able, in spite of his examination failure, to make something worthwhile out of his life. Now, we can also say poverty, like many would say, is the reason for depression. We're looking at 2 men before us today who, in spite of poverty to become their reason or excuse for depression, poverty happened to be their motivation to pursue success, their motivation to become something worthwhile in life. Number 4 is those who complain, who are depressed because of their beauty, their complexion. Yomi Kajua is a popular fashion designer. He confessed that he suffered depression in the past because of his dark complexion. I wonder what Yomi Casual would think of if he appeared in the skin of Lizzie Valesky, who was labeled as the most ugly woman in the world. Valesky was able to make something beautiful, something purposeful out of her life, despite a not very attractive skin, an attractive look. And she has learned to live and journey through life without being depressed. So we can see from these two lives that beauty, complexion, handsomeness are not an excuse why anybody should be depressed. Another assumed cause of depression is sickness. Steve Hawking can tell you what it feels like to be on his wheelchair for over 50 years, and a sickness that has no medical cure. And he lived on his wheelchair. He couldn't communicate normally. He had to use a technology to communicate. And this man was able to live purposefully, was able to contribute better than all or many who never had the kind of sickness that made him live on his wheelchair for over 50 years. So what can we refer to as another assumed cause of depression? There are others which are loss of a beloved person, which are loss of job, and other petty reasons, like Chimamanda said that she suffered depression, and her depression started from the development of pimples. Imagine that. A young boy told me that he was suffering from depression because he doesn't have the white teeth. So even depression can erupt from non-essential, funny things. Another can be broken relationship or divorce. Others can be the feeling of purposelessness or hopelessness and the fear of the future. All these are the assumed, I believe they are assumed causes of depression. Now the question is, what can we refer to as the real cause of depression? The real cause of depression is a lack of mind management techniques. The source of our thoughts, the source of our actions, the source of the realities of our life is in the mind. It is important to mention here that, like what Miles Morrow said, that the most important thing in life is management. Every serious-minded businessman will tell you that it takes effective management to run any business, be it a sole proprietorship, be it a partnership. It takes effective management to run a business. And the most important management in life is the mind management. Because when you can productively manage your mind, you will be able to manage your business productively. And the mind can be referred to like a field. When you have a field, if you don't clear the field, if you don't take away weeds on the field, and all these are management, if you don't plant the seed you desire on your field, weeds will naturally grow on that field. And the weeds on the field is like the negative thoughts. The mind that you don't feed, the mind that you don't manage, the mind that you don't take care of will feed itself with negative contents. Either negative content in you or negative content outside of you. Lack of mind management techniques means poor control of the thoughts in the mind. It means accepting and nursing negative thoughts. Every person who is depressed today, every person who is suffering from anxiety and suicidal tendencies, like I've suffered in the past, accepted the negative thoughts in their mind, they accepted it, and they nursed the thoughts. Then after nursing the thoughts for several weeks and months, it grows and becomes a monster which comes back and fights them. and they begin to nurse the tendency of putting an end to their life. And that is how lack of mind management techniques has been working. And also wrong use of the mind and thought process. Those who lack the mind management techniques cannot but use the mind wrongly and against themselves. How does this apply to our daily life? When you feed your mind with negative thoughts like, I am worthless, I can't amount to anything, I can't do it, I am ugly, I'm beautiful, I am a failure, I am not worthy, and others, what you are absolutely going to get is you're going to be sad, you're going to be angry, pain will develop, suffering is sure to erupt. Unhappy, you become unhappy, you become tired, depression will come in. And if care is not taken, you are most likely going to consider suicide. But if you feed your mind with positive content like, I am beautiful, I am wholesome, I am enough, I am grateful, I am happy, I'm beautiful, I am important. If you feed your mind with content like this, what you are surely going to get is positive thoughts, positive mindsets. Then growth is sure to erupt in your life. No matter the challenge you are going through, if you take this, you continue this process in the morning and the night, every day, you will experience some level of happiness and peace within yourself. And if you feed your mind with negative thoughts, you get negative results, you get negative behavior. If you feed your mind with positive thoughts, you are going to get positive results. How can depression be treated? Number one is it can either be treated by psychotherapy, with psychotherapy. Psychotherapy involves an exercise like counseling, advice, which does not involve the use of medication, like what you are getting now. The other kind is the use of medication, usually with the use of antidepressants. This usually comes in when the depression or the person has become slightly severe. While when the depression becomes severe, serious, and critical for several months, it usually involves the use of a technology which helps in brain stimulation. Now, the question then is that how can we manage the mind to prevent depression? Number one is to learn to be grateful. Don't forget that all these are psychotherapeutic way to manage depression through management of your mind. Number one is to learn to be grateful. Gratitude is a psychological medicine. It is like opium that when you take it, it helps you to overcome depression, helps you to overcome heaviness of heart. So gratefulness can be attained by learning about the life of those who are going through hard times, especially those that are going through times and difficulties that are more intense than yourself. If you read about the life of Ellen Keller, who was blind and deaf, but yet this woman became a political activist. She became a lecturer, a first deaf-blind lecturer. Did I mention Annie Johnson Flint, who, in spite of a paralysis, also made something worthwhile out of her life? So when you learn about biographies of people who are going through hard times, give yourself to reading biographies of people. It gives you health. It promotes the healthiness of the mind. Number two is put up a debate with the negative thoughts in the mind. Putting up a debate, it requires that you gather information, make research to engage the debate in the mind. Because if you lose, there's high tendency that the rate of depression will be heightened in your mind. Don't forget that we said there are voices in the mind that you cannot do without. It is in the mind of everyone, no matter how spiritual, no matter how knowledgeable you are. So when the negative voices are coming up, the voices are like, what is the next phase of your life? What are you going to do? You are 28, you're not married yet. You have been working in this company for over 5 years. You have not accomplished anything. What are you going to do with your life? You're a failure. You are a fool. You're not going to amount to anything. That negative voices can be coming frequently in your mind. Now, you need to give answers. You need to reply. You need to give answers to those questions. Else, the negative thoughts will multiply and your emotions, your body will be affected. Number 3, live in the present, then plan for the future. To overcome the fear of the future, many are suffering from nothing but the fear of the future. And fear has been defined as false evidence appearing real. Living in the present requires that you speak to your mind. You speak to your mind as well, you plan for the future. And don't forget that when you entertain this fear, if you don't learn to overcome your fear, if you entertain this fear, it might actually come to pass in your life. And if you also look critically, that when you fight against your fear, what we fear the most may not come to pass in our life. Number 4, never create room for the idleness of the mind. An idle mind is a devil's workshop. So idleness of the mind simply means not feeding the mind. It means leaving the mind empty. It means not reading. It means not feeding the mind with contents that will help the mind to flourish, to grow. The moment you create room for idleness in the mind will naturally feed on negative things, either within you or without you. Even without your knowledge, the mind will be suggesting negative things will attack you, except you learn to feed your mind with positive things. This is what people in religion, this is what they do. This is why many people go to mosque, they go to church and listen to sermons. So you must find a way to never create room for idleness in your mind. When this is done, the mind will naturally by itself feed on negative things. It will feed you with negative thoughts, negative feeling. And this must be fight against. Number 5 is speak up and reach out for help. Many who suffer depression and eventually committed suicide, if you study them critically, they never opened up, early or later in life. I have a friend who was suffering from depression. He often speak up. He spoke to me. And in the midst of the conversation, you will always see that his eyes is lightened. Before he leaves that environment, he has accumulated some knowledge, information that he needed to live peacefully. So you need to speak up. Research has shown that those who overcome depression early in life, they often live among family and friends. They don't live in solitude. But those who live solitary life, they are most likely going to suffer much more depression or severe depression, or might end up having their depression end in suicidal thoughts. Number 6 is be optimistic. The word persi here simply means pessimism. Then optimistic means positive hope for the future. Now, this means that you have to be a strategic optimist. Don't be an absolute optimist. Create room for doubt. Like what Miles Morrow said, that expect the best and prepare for the worst. If you are the kind of person who is an absolute optimist, you are actually going to be disappointed in life. If you are absolute optimist that the person who has promised to give you something will assuredly give you, if you are absolute optimist that Nothing will ever fail for you in life. The business you are doing, you are 100% sure that you'll be successful. You'll be disappointed in life. So if you are absolutely sure that the work you are doing, you cannot be sacked, you can't be laid off for one reason or the other, you may be disappointed. So you need to create room for that. Expect the best and prepare for the worst. Number 7 is be self-aware. Also, you need to be aware of the communications in your mind. There are many who are not aware of the communications, of the discussions in their mind. They only live after the negative thoughts in their mind. They assume they are the ones speaking to themselves. They assume that the voices in their mind is their reality. They assume that the communications in their mind is the truth, is the final say. And they accepted those voices, which are often negative. Like psychology said that 86% of the communications in our mind are negative. Most importantly, they go undetected by the conscious mind. So you need to be self-aware. You need to understand and separate that this thought that is coming is not for me. This thought is not from me. The thought is negative. It is not healthy. It is ill. And you kick the thought out with a positive thought. You can put up what we talked about in point 2, which is you put up a debate with the communications in your mind. Number 8 is you program your mind, most especially early in the morning and late in the night before going to bed. So programming the mind helps to put the mind in shape. Why does a laptop perform beautifully well and it gives you what you impute into it? So the input of a computer, or the output rather of a computer, is always in connection with the input. It is because the computer is well programmed. In the same vein, when you program your mind with positive thoughts, you get positive results, you get positive thinking, and you become productive in life. Now, the man before us, he said, things may happen around you, and things may happen to you, but the only things that matter are the things that happen in you. We may not be able to control things that happens around us, like Nigeria. We might not be able to put an end to the unemployment. We might not be able to put an end to the corruption, but you can control what goes on within you. If you are always thinking or reacting based on what is going on around you, because the country is corrupt because of the unemployment, you said, I cannot amount to anything in this country, you have created a path of impossibility for yourself. You have created a culture, you have created an environment, you have created a future which dictates that you are not going to make anything out of this country. So things may go on negative around you, they can go on beside you, but never let those negative things take root downward in you, because they will actually bear fruit upward. As we conclude today, there's a story of an ancient thinker called Lao Tzu, who faced great criticism, persecution, and hard times in life. While he went through those persecution and hard times, he was asked how he managed to go through those persecution, depression, and those persecution, oppression, criticism without being depressed. And he replied, he said, it is just that every day in the morning when I wake up, I used to get a question. The question is today, shall I be joyful or miserable? And he said, I just happen to choose to be joyful. I just happen to choose joy. Now the question for you today is that, what have you been choosing in the past? Many who suffer depression have been choosing to be depressed. There are those who even got depressed on funny, non-essential things. A young boy reached out to me on my WhatsApp platform. He said he was depressed because he believed he doesn't have a white teeth. And the last time I checked this boy, he doesn't have a black teeth either. Neither does he have a gray teeth. imagine the funny reason why he should be depressed. And he also said he was noticing negative thoughts in his mind, and that was affecting his academic performance. Not until he received a psychotherapy from me, then he began to live free from the negative thoughts and depression. So the word for today, never forget, is I am not the negative voice in my mind. I am not the negative voice in my mind. What we will be discussing around in the next few minutes, we have very few minutes now, less than 9 minutes, is what kind of depression have you suffered in the past or currently experiencing? How are you going to overcome it based on what you have learned? So is there anybody who would like to, if you'd like to speak, kindly indicate, and then you get a platform. So what kind of depression have you suffered in the past? How were you able to overcome it, or are you currently going through? If any of what we have discussed is not clear, so that we can all address it together. Does anybody would like to speak? Anybody? We have less than 8 minutes to end today's class. Okay. In the absence of
good evening.
Okay, good evening. Thank you.
Yes, yes, much. But I think every one of us have gone through depression at one point or the other in our lives. So it's mostly is for me, it's just that I'm not doing enough. Or probably I would have done better than I did. When I get the result and I'm not satisfied with that, I just feel like I would have done better than I did. And though I put in my best, but I'm not really satisfied. So that's one of the main cause of depression for me. But I'm working on it very seriously. So with time, I know that I'll get over it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ima. I would just like to say something about that. You say you think you are not doing enough. Just like what you have said, you need to read also about those who have not gotten the privilege or the opportunity that you've had. Mr. James, can you please mute your mic, or Miss James? Okay, thank you. So you might also have to read about biographies of those who have not had the privilege that you have. Just like we said, live in the present, also prepare for the future. That is one. Then look at what you can do to improve your capacity, to improve your intellectual property in a bid to do better. You can. So that is one of the kind of depression which I think you can easily overcome. Is there any person who would like to speak? I think Mr. Ima or Ladiji, you unmuted your mic, or Mr. James. Is there anybody who would like to speak, contribute?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You're welcome, sir.
Though what I will do, I'm so excited to just be participated in this program. Okay. It was a great privilege. Though I feel depressed most times within my friends when I see some setbacks, like I'm not probably doing good or doing well like that. But when I started to see from some other people, when I started to see that there are some people that are even gone bad more than me, and I see that with that I can encourage myself to do better.
Thank you very much. Just like you have said, you can always improve. There is room for improvement. Like a popular saying that the sky is too broad enough for a bird to be opposing the progress of the other. So yet we will always have those who are doing better than ourselves. Like a couple of years back, it was Jeff Bezos that was the richest man in the world. And the current richest man came all the way from far behind, which is known as Elon Musk, and grew to become much more successful than many that were initially before him. So we will always have those who are doing better than us before us, but we should learn to also look back and see those that we are doing better than. So great gratitude is one of the very important key to overcome depression. And also don't forget, there is room for improvements. There's virtually nothing that you cannot learn online today. I learned web design online. I learned graphic design online. I paid relatively nothing to learn those skills. So there is room for improvements, and those room for improvements are relatively free. So thank you for joining. Is there any other person who would like to say one or two things, please? Is anybody who would like to make mention of the kind of depression that we suffered in the past and how they were able to overcome? So I'd like to say thank you to everyone who came. And I don't know if I want to ask if there's anybody who has any question regarding today's class. Is anybody who wants to ask question? So I'd like to say thank you all for your presence in today's Soft Skills Masterclass. And I'm very happy to have you, Mr. Ima, Mr. James, Mr. Asheyifumi. I'm very happy to have you also, Mrs. Tutuola Adiola. So thank you for your presence, and we see in the next class, which will be coming up next week. So have a splendid weekend. Thank you.